Long walk, teeny talks. Long walk, teeny talks. Long walk, teeny talks. Long walk, teeny talks. Yeah!
Well, welcome back to Long Walk Teeny Talks. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined once again today by my beautiful co-host, my wife, Katie Bearden. How are you, Katie?
Hello. Doing good. In the hood.
And we're still tired from Thanksgiving. We're definitely not recording these episodes on the same day. We're just still tired from Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we're tired in general most of the time, so
Yeah.
there is that.
I saw a thing online where somebody asked, what was the point at which you realized you were never going to feel well rested again and you were going to constantly be tired? And I was like, fuck, when was that? 26, 27? It's been a minute now since I have felt like I am not tired.
Yeah, that's the first thing we always ask each other whenever we wake up too. It's like, how'd you sleep? How'd you do? Just checking in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a new Fitbit tracker, and I'm so obsessed with seeing my sleep score. That's like my favorite thing in the world now to see. I mean, I have some sort of perception on how well I think I slept, but now I have this new gizmo that's like, actually, you were awake for 47 minutes at 3 a.m. I'm like, what? I don't even... Okay, you robot.
No, see, if it were me, I would look at that thing and be like, well, you know what? Fuck you. Yeah, I was awake. Go to hell.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if I get a full restful 8 hours of sleep or if I could sleep for 3 days and I'd be still wake up like, fuck, I'm tired. But anyway, what are we talking about today, Katie?
Something so super happy and joyful. But this was more of I need your opinion as a movie connoisseur and a film professional. Today we're going to talk about the hospice of movie houses. So, and I picked that title only because it just flows trippingly off the tongue, but more specifically, movie theaters. Can we save them? What's going to happen? You know, what do you perceive them becoming if they are no longer theaters? And what can we do as patrons to hopefully save a very quickly dying or dead industry?
Well, I've had this theory that is related to this for a while now, which is that film and innovations in film tend to go by decade. So we see alternating decades of popularity of indie films, followed by a decade of big budget studio films. And they bleed over into each other. Like specifically, you know, the 70s, the late 60s and the 70s are kind of like the heyday of indie movies. Because that's when you started seeing the rise of young auteur directors like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, doing these small budget art house pictures that didn't have studio backing and that launched their careers. And then you look at the 80s, and yeah, you still had those directors, those young auteurs that were coming up and making their careers, but you also had those directors from the 70s are now making big budget blockbusters. So you're getting like your Indiana Jones films and your Back to the Futures, all the big comedies. And then you go into the 90s and you start seeing the rise of more young indie directors, Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, even to an extent, David Fincher, who has always sort of been an indie auteur. Then along comes the aughts, and we start seeing big budget films again. You got Christopher Nolan's Batman films. We started seeing the beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We got more superhero films. Then the 10s come along, and this past decade has been very much a perfect blend of the two. Like, never has the indie film been more popular than it has for the last 10 years, right? While we're also still seeing these huge $200 million, $300 million blockbusters. I think what's going to happen going further into this decade, into the 2020s, we are not going to be seeing, at least for a while, any indie films in movie theaters. I said all of that. That was all set up to say that as popular as indie movies are, we're not going to see any in theaters for a while. Because in order to recoup those losses from this year alone and to keep movie theaters alive, we have to start seeing blockbusters. You know, we got, as far as Marvel goes, over the next 3 years, there's like 8 films that are going to be coming out. We got Black Widow, we got the Eternals. From the DC side of things, well, they're going to be releasing Wonder Woman to HBO Max, but they have more DC Universe films scheduled to come out. We're going to start seeing a lot more of that, because these big budget blockbusters are the ones that are going to bring in audiences that are going to make back double or triple their budgets, and could potentially, that's the only thing I see saving movie theaters. And it's not going to be a $40 or $50 million buddy comedy or a coming of age story or a romance.
It makes you wonder too, like going back to Steven Spielberg's like argument of, he couldn't have predicted the pandemic would take such a toll on theatrical releases as it has, but his comments on streaming movies versus movies that get a theatrical release, it's kind of humorous now to think about all of those statements that he made and how production companies have no choice but to put them on streaming platforms in order for people to be able to watch them. And it'll be interesting to see how the Oscars kind of shape up this upcoming year, to see, what's not. I mean, nothing has necessarily, except for Tenet, nothing has really like rolled over box office numbers, because we haven't been able to go into the physical theater, which is also an interesting point to think about, because the brick and mortar theaters aren't doing so hot, but the resurgence in drive-in movie theaters, and the fact that, I think there's one in Kings Mountain near us, well, quote unquote near us, it's still a drive away, but it's interesting that that's now the safest opportunity to... What would you like me to do? Take a sip of my drink?
I was trying to ask you if I could have some.
Oh, well, here you go.
Without interrupting your stream of thought.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Now I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, I'm so
that's not water.
stupid. No, it's Sierra Mist.
Well, I was surprised it looked like water from here.
Anywho, I'll learn how to read your lips better, I guess.
I'm sure that whole exchange was just fascinating for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure that was great. But, like how a lot of performances have started to even go into drive-in movie settings. Like one of my favorite comedians, Eliza, has started doing drive-in comedy shows just so everybody can stay safe. Like I honestly don't think, and this is just my 2 cents, I don't think that we're going to see movie theaters come back from the detrimental loss that they've had this year until there's a vaccine.
Right. Yeah. I was so excited back in September when Regal Theaters reopened, because prior to September, the only movie that I had seen this year in a theater was Underwater.
Yeah. And you were like, don't let me die this way.
Yeah, exactly. And then they were open for about 6 weeks until in October they announced they'd be closing through at least the end of the year. And that was devastating to me, because when it was first announced, it looked like, oh shit, Regal Theaters are closing, which is what I initially thought. Will we ever completely see the death of the movie theater? No, I don't think so. It's the equivalent of like the Coliseums. You got to have some place to go. It's just, you're not watching a live human being die to a tiger. You're watching a character in a movie get eaten by a shark, a giant shark. that also then goes on to fight a T-Rex.
That was
I don't know.
Weird
but,
analogy.
But I mean, you see what I mean, though? Like, everybody needs that place to go to in a group. It's like sports arenas. Mm-hmm. Same concept.
Yeah.
People need somewhere to go and gather and be entertained. And for that reason, and Hollywood's never going to go away either.
Oh, no. But I'm just curious that, Regal declared bankruptcy, or like they're shutting down everything.
Yeah, shutting down everything indefinitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this upcoming decade is going to be the decade of the blockbuster again. And then we're not really going to see a resurgence of small budget indies. I say small budget, but 40, 50, $60 million movies. We're not going to start seeing those back in theaters in more than just, maybe one every couple months until the late 20s into the 2030s. Mm-hmm. That's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong because, let's be honest, I've been wrong about everything this year. I said the pandemic.
You said this year was your year. Boy, were you wrong.
We all said 2020 is our year. And then, I did not see this pandemic going on past June.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see it going on past August or September. Mm-hmm. And here we go. And now I've just stopped predicting.
Yeah.
So,
well, all we can hope for is a safe, vaccine to get out en masse in order to hopefully prevent another wave of this from happening. And it's with Regal going out of business indefinitely. I mean, I've slowly watched major movie houses incorporate more and more and more into their lobby and their offerings. It's like it's been more difficult to battle the streaming services to get you to leave your house in the first place. Now, lock us all down for months on end, and we are clawing the walls off. Like, we've watched all the content that we want to watch. So now we're hungry to go back into public places. But just because you're over the pandemic doesn't mean the pandemic's over.
Right.
It's the kind of thing where it just within the last, just AMC theaters, let's just take them into account. The last AMC theater I went into, there was a full bar. There were more concession options. It was more expensive. Yeah. But to have a beer and popcorn together, that was pretty great. Mm-hmm. But to have a full sit-down bar, and, it's like they're pumping more effort into, reclining seats and all of this jazz to make you want to come out. And I feel like that was an effort that could have been a little woebegone because of maybe the indie and the blockbuster mix that you were talking about. But I keep seeing all of these efforts being poured into the experience of going to a movie theater other than just paying for the movie. Mm-hmm. Because they're hurting because what was the statistics? Like the first 2 weeks, the production companies get the
majority of the money. The
majority of the money, and then everything else is the movie house's profit after that. Yeah,
and I mean, a majority of a movie theater's profit is coming from concession sales.
Which is why you see a full bar and all that stuff. Okay, that makes sense.
This is a weird prediction just based on history, but I think what we might start seeing is micro-budget films that are really going to get a heavy marketing push. Like, I think we're probably going to start seeing movies made on $20,000 or $25,000 that production studios will then put $2 or $3 million into marketing so that we see like Blair Witch type scenarios or Paranormal Activity type scenarios. Micro budget movies, they then go on to make millions. That's a viable option, I would think. If you for the right movie, like if another Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity comes along, that could be a huge gain for whatever studio decides to take that chance.
Yeah.
Just for funsies, I decided to open the Regal app.
Oh.
I know. I expected it to just be a middle finger. and it say, fuck you specifically, David. But there's a banner at the top that says, Regal Theaters are temporarily closed. We look forward to sharing movies with you again soon. And it seems to me like they're being optimistic here, but under the coming soon tab, in 75 days, The King's Man. So it looks like the earliest we could possibly see a movie at Regal would be February 12th, 2021. And then opens in 82 days, Antlers. There's going to be a live action Tom and Jerry movie. I say live action. It looks like Chloe Grace Moretz is interacting with Tom and Jerry from the cartoons. Morbius, 110 days. No Time to Die, 124. A Quiet Place Part 2 opens in 145 days, April 23rd. Black Widow, 159 days, May 7th. So the February dates might be a little optimistic on their part, but we can still cross our fingers.
Yeah.
I'm really digging this whole way. If they reopen again, the throwback movies, like we went and saw Empire Strikes Back, and that was one of my favorite experiences. A lot of places are showing like the first Iron Man and Indiana Jones.
Yeah. A lot of movies that I either wasn't allowed to see when I was younger and when they were on the big screen, or that I never got the opportunity like in my adult years. That's what, going to the Airsley and seeing all the retro horror movies, that's the best. So shout out to the Airsley local theater here in the Charlotte area. They are doing private screenings for $99. You take them your DVD, you pay them $99 hairs, and you get up to 20 friends in the theater with you. So if you want to do that, feel free to Google the Airsley. Is it
AyrsleY?
So one of our favorite privately owned movie theaters that always does a good job, and they're trying to stay afloat right now.
They let us watch Trick or Treat on the big screen back in October, and we're going to be doing it again later this month. I don't want to give away our idea, but I think we have the best double feature idea ever.
We do. We most certainly do. But, it's a great way to... stay socially distant, wear your mask. Masks are required, in the theater, and they sell concessions too, and that's how they're getting by. So we're happy to support them and everything that they do, because they've always done a good job of like putting on the retro horror movie screenings, and we've always enjoyed going there and having a good time. But I know I think AMC is doing that now, the $99 theater rental. Like you're never going to find a better deal than that, folks, honestly.
Yeah, you get 10 friends to come with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
In those reclining seats. Ooh, bring a blanket. It's going to be great.
Yeah, just whatever can put me into a movie theater, because that is my happy place. Sitting in a reclining chair in front of a 40-foot screen, the outside world completely shut off. Yeah.
And honestly, folks, it's the cleanest I've ever seen movie theaters. Ever. Because now they have, what's astonishing to me is now they have all these cleaning policies of like getting the goo off the floors and like making sure it is pristine so people stay safe. So if you were sick of getting your shoes stuck to the floor before, here's your loophole.
Remember when we saw Tenet and we were the only people in the theater?
Yes.
That was a great experience.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. I still didn't talk to you through the whole movie though.
No?
You would think we would just be wiling out. It's mostly because I had to be quiet and pay attention, because those Christopher Nolan movies, man, he says, here's the 5 facts you need to know about this movie. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to absorb it. You're going to get a character that's going to ask a bunch of questions. You're going to get all the information I'm ever going to give you. I'm going to turn up my sound effects super loud, so I don't know if you're going to be able to hear anybody talking around you. Okay, bye.
I was going to say, we didn't talk to each other because I think we were both so intently listening
my
to what
brain
the hell
was burning. Yeah.
Like, wait, what is he saying? Is he explaining the plot? I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think I did pretty good during Tenet. I cannot, this is taking a page from my mother's book, don't go see a Chris Nolan movie sleepy. Don't go after a long day at the office. Like, just don't do it. You're not going to have a good time. I love his movies. I love his directing style. I love that he writes such high concept movies. But man, I can't. I have to like clutch both of the armrests and like lean into the screen and pry my eyes open. It's like a Clockwork Orange most of the time.
Well, thank you, Katie. That was a great topic, and I really enjoyed that discussion, even if it does make me a little bit sad.
I know it makes you sad, but at the same time, I think it'll slowly make the climb back up there.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
Well, Katie, if people want to follow you online, where can they do that at?
You can follow me on Instagram at KTB Won't Stop Believin'.
All right, and you can also follow me on Instagram at DB Hensley. If you would like to see more of our work, you can visit our website, longwalk.us, or in our show notes, there's a link to our YouTube channel. There's also a link to the podcast YouTube channel where you can hear older episodes from this podcast. You can search for Long Walk Productions and Long Walk Podcasts on Facebook to go and give those a like. And if you enjoy this show, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on. Thank you very much for listening.
Stay teeny!